Hello and welcome to NewsNight. I am Ladi Akiriduluale. It's our pleasure to have you join us today. Finally, the long-planned digital switchover process has reached Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, as well as two of its other biggest cities, Port Harcourt and Kano. What will be the impact of this switchover on the broadcast industry and its listeners and viewers, and what does it involve? Also, government appears to now be seeking an elite consensus on how to deal with its security challenges by involving those outside of government to identify the problems, but more importantly, provide sustainable solutions. But will this work? NewsNight talks to the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Honorable Minister, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Let's start off with the digital switchover program, shall we? It seems as if you are ready to take on the big wheel at this point, which is Lagos. We had started with some of the other cities before now, but Lagos is coming up now. Maybe we should begin by asking, why Lagos now?
Lagos now because when we rolled off in 2016, we tried to experiment, so to say, with states that wouldn't pose too much of a problem to us in terms of the number of set-top boxes they would need. And we wanted to make sure that this thing works in other smaller states before we come to Lagos. Let me give an example. We believe there are about 24 to 25 million television households in Nigeria. And over 5 million is in Lagos alone. So if you want to roll out in Lagos, you must be ready to have 5 million set-top boxes. So we have to prepare specially for Lagos. And that is why after we've rolled out in 6 states, actually 5 states and the FCT, we felt that our phase 2 of the rollout should start with Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Kano, in that order.
The 3, some would say 3 biggest of the cities.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, it's good you mentioned the issue of the set-top boxes, because that had been one of the things that so many people had asked questions about between when you announced that the rollout was going to take place in Lagos and now. Where are they supposed to get this set-top boxes? Are they supposed to pay for them, or is it being subsidized by the federal government, and so on? What's the plan? What's the arrangement in that regard?
It's not going to be subsidized by the federal government again, no. People, Nigerians, who pay for their set-top boxes. But you see, paying for the set-top boxes is by far a better value proposition than what obtains now with pay TVs. You see, the whole idea of the digital switchover is to offer Nigerian viewers what is normally only available on pay TV, which is clarity of picture, audio, and a variety of channels. That is actually the whole idea of the digital switchover. But as opposed to the run-of-the-mill pay TV, where you acquire not just the decoder, which is the same thing as the set-top box, you will also pay monthly subscriptions. In the case of the digital switchover, once you acquire the set-top box, you don't pay any monthly subscription. You only pay an annual renewal fee, which we call digital access fees. So it's by far a better proposition than what is obtainable today in terms of reaching, the people, giving them better quality television, better content, better programs.
Where can they get these boxes? Because already there are people asking the question that they want to be ahead of the curve.
The federal government licensed 13 set-top box manufacturers in the country, and 4 of them are already manufacturing in Calabar, in Lagos, in Osun State, and another one, I think, in the FCT. And more are coming, and then some people are also bringing boxes. But we want to encourage more of manufacturing than importation of set-top boxes.
Okay. So for us, if I wanted a set-top box now, I would have to look for one of these licensed vendors, so to speak,
Absolutely.
or manufacturers,
yes,
to be able to get. So I can go to anyone, really.
Any of them.
There's none that the federal government is recommending or the ministry
No,
is
no,
recommending.
we license 13, so you can go to any of the 13. But the beauty of this program is that if you bring in any set-top box from anywhere, in the world, outside those 13 set-top boxes, it won't work.
Okay, so they have more or less the exclusivity for the market as at now because they are licensed.
Yes, in the sense that they are investing a lot of money in establishing these, factories. So the government believe also it has to protect their investment. Otherwise, you are going to have a market that will be flooded by cheap, boxes from every part of the world, and then would defeat the purpose of encouraging local investors.
Okay, in that case, maybe we'll have to wait until the day of rollout to be able to know where to go.
As a matter of fact, the set-top manufacturers themselves are already advertising, how they can reach the populace. Many of them already have distributors in most cities, and they have retailers also. And I'm sure that you hear more from them.
This digital switchover has been long in coming. If my memory serves me well, this must be well over a decade that we have been trying to do this transition, long before the government in which you serve came on board. Part of the problem, as had been identified in the past, apart from technicals, was the issue of whether people would be able to meet up, pay continuously to be able to run the system, and whether or not the operators, those who currently operate under the current system, would be able to make the necessary adjustment, because it was also going to cost them money to make the adjustment. Have you overcome those hurdles now? Is that why this is the best time for this?
Well, you see, we've tried to provide a legal framework and provide an investment climate now that will make this DSO a viable proposition for all the parties. We have amended the broadcasting code in a manner that will make it possible for all the actors, be they content owners, be they television channel owners, be they set-top boxes, manufacturers, that it would make it possible for them to make money. For instance, we realize that for this industry to survive, for the DSO to survive, then the advertising industry must survive. There must be more revenue in advertising. If there's more revenue in advertising, then TV channel owners will make more money. Content producers will make more money. So we have amended the code in many areas to ensure that it's a win-win situation for everybody. We started with, take for instance the issue of advertisers. We noticed over time that advertising funds end up in wrong hands. It's often diverted. And it is the TV channel owners, and the producers that receive the short end of the stick. So we've amended the code now to read that if advertisers don't pay their bill within 60 days of placement of the advertisement, such advertisements will be stopped, will be barred. Such agencies will be barred from all radio, television, stations in Nigeria. See, the idea of that is to ensure that we empower the television station owners, we empower the content producers, so that the money for advertising will go into the right hands. Two, we notice too that as we speak today, there is no objective measurement system of what programs attract what audience. So we set up what we call an audience measurement system. So in fact, the Advertising Practitioner Council of Nigeria has already issued a request for proposal from audience management system providers to come and compete and bid, so that we would have a system whereby a television owner would know what kind of programs are popular. Are they children programs? Are they music programs? Are they movie programs? How many of them attract many eyeballs and at what time? And that will help them in their scheduling, in their inventory. Then that will follow up with what we are setting up very soon, which is a council along the line of what we have in Britain, which I think is called the British Audience Registration Board. It's a council that would be responsible for the metrics and for actually rating TV stations and radio stations. It's only in that way that you can monetize the advertising industry. Now, ahead of our rollout also, realize that it is important to encourage local content, local producers, local actors. So we also did amend the broadcasting code in a manner that provides that if you are advertising a product which is made in Nigeria, produced in Nigeria, grown in Nigeria, or a service which will be consumed in Nigeria, then you can't go outside Nigeria to produce the advertisement. You must use local content, local talents in Nigeria. And any broadcaster that defaults will be fined 100,000 naira for every broadcast of that, of that material. The idea is that we do not need to go out of Nigeria to make advertisements for, say, a product which is consumed by Nigerians. We must find talented Nigerians who would produce those adverts in Nigeria, because they are meant for, local consumption. It's our own way of encouraging local content and encouraging the industry. We also went further to amend the code to say that every broadcaster must ensure that 60% of his programs are local content programs. And we went to define what is local content. For a program to qualify as local content, it must be produced, directed, and authored by Nigeria. 2, 75% of the actors and supporting cast must be Nigerians. The directors we're talking about must be based in Nigeria, not somebody who says the director is in London. Then 75% of the program cost must be spent in Nigeria. And 75% of the post-production expenditure or services must be to the benefit of Nigerians or Nigerian companies. We believe those are the ways that we can actually encourage, the growth of the industry. Now, we also went further to say that if you are going to buy a sports rights in Nigeria, there's no exclusivity clause again. You cannot, as a pay TV owner, go and buy, say, Premier Football and say only your platform can show it. No. You have a right to go and buy any content, but you must be ready to share that content at a price to be agreed by the parties with any other platform that so, demands. Yes. And we realize that sports in particular drives, eyeballs. So if you want to go and buy the rights for a live football in Nigeria, you must be ready to share it with Nigerians, with other platforms. And we went further to amend the code to say that whoever is a rights owner and has invested money in buying a live, sports program in Nigeria, such a person must also invest in the local sports to the extent of 30% of what he has invested in buying the foreign rights. And whoever advertises during that
live match
must also advertise equally in a similar, our own local leagues. We believe these are ways that we believe that we can stop the anti-competitive practices and monopolistic rights, because as of today, the NBC has issued licenses to about 30 Nigerian pay TV stations. Only one is managing to survive because of this, exclusivity rights, because of this monopolistic tendencies, and because of this anti-competitive rights. So those are some of the amendments we made to the code to ensure that the media industry survives and is viable.
Well, of course, I'm sure you are aware that there are... First of all, let me ask, who is to monitor all this and ensure that it's the NBC?
It's the NBC, yes.
Now, but I'm sure, Honorable Minister, that there are people who have expressed divergent views on this. You can call them vested interests, if you like,
right.
People who have invested in the current system and believe that this amendments will not be to their benefit. I know that you tried to engage at various points when the amendments were being proposed and so on. Did you get the kind of feedback that gave you the impression that these stakeholders, shall we call them that, will buy into this instead of looking for loopholes to avoid compliance?
You see, like the thing is that there's nothing called absolute intellectual property rights anywhere in the world. A government has a duty to look at and do what it believes is in the overall interest of the country, not of a particular sector of society. And frankly speaking, we do not see how any of the amendments we have made is going to adversely affect any investor as such, except that, you see, people want to make maximum profit. And we are saying, fine, but as a government and any responsible government in the world, they would have regulations to ensure that there's a level playing ground for all entrants, for all competitors. And that's all we have done. And really, I look at some of the controversies, and to me, they are needless. When we said that if you go and produce an advert in, say, Brazil, and you want to play, and that advert, we're not saying just an advert, an advert for a product which is made in Nigeria, which will be consumed in Nigeria. We believe it's not fair that you should allow Brazil or Italy to make it, because it means that we are putting Italians in job, we are putting Brazilians in employment as against Nigerians. And by the way, that you'll be surprised that the amendments are already yielding fruits. We have been reliably informed that as a result of that amendment, a multinational company in Nigeria that was supposed to go and make a production of a product outside Nigeria used Nigerian content and used Nigerian talent. And that the Nigerian talent that they used make 10 million naira, and the model made 5 million naira. So we believe that, and you see, this will also help to improve the skill, the expertise of Nigerians. So we don't expect not to have any protest or complaints, but we are ready to engage all and explain to them that this is in the overall interest of the industry.
Now, coming to security itself, traditional security, the last time I spoke to you, between then and now, there have been changes, there have been developments, so to speak. Of course, we had the 7th anniversary of the Chibok girls abduction, which was the first major one of that type. Of course, since then, we've had others. And then we've had other security challenges. What happened in Imo, for example, and before that in Anambra and so on. I'm just wondering, today, is your view different from what you told me just over a month ago, in view of the things that have now happened?
Not really. You see, it is incontrovertible that Nigeria is facing security challenges, be it herdsmen farmers clashes, be it Boko Haram, be it ethno-religious crisis, be it insurgency. But what is also important is that the government is also doing its best to return peace and security across the country. And it's part of the concern of government about finding an elite consensus on the issue of national security, national unity, coexistence among Nigerians, that we organize a town hall meeting in Kaduna. And the theme of the town hall meeting was to secure an enhanced, national security, is to achieve an enhanced national security and national unity for the whole country. And we are glad about the outcome of that meeting. of that town hall meeting, because that town hall meeting, both in terms of the quality of the people that attended and the quality of the discourse and the quality of the resolutions that came out, we are very encouraged. First, we had in attendance about 8 ministers. We had the Senate leader and other members of the House of National Assembly in attendance. We had traditional rulers, religious leaders, bishops, imams. We had the representative of Miyetti Allah. We had Pandef. We had all the major stakeholders in attendance. And the unique thing about this particular town hall meeting is that it was not like any of the other town hall meetings we've held. Before now, we had a town hall meeting where the government spoke to Nigerians. This time around, our panelists were actually from the private sector, from the civil society, and from the academia. And it was a no-holds-barred presentation and discussion, at the end of which everybody, not only did they give, reasons or, why we have problems, but they also proffered solutions to the problems that we had. And we intend to share the resolutions, not just with the stakeholders and government, but also to pass it to the Federal Council so that it will become, something that is implementable. So yes, we have challenges, but we are not sitting on, we're not resting on ours to address these challenges. And the good thing about this particular town hall meeting is that the presenters and the discussants went very deep.
They were unsparing of government, actually.
Oh, no, that's actually, yes, it was, but
they were very unsparing.
But they were not just only unsparing of government, they were unsparing of governments. Because I know each of them said, we've had this problem for decades. Take the issue of the free and compulsory primary education.
Yes, which was discussed about, particularly for the North.
For the North. The fact is that in 1973, we were informed by the lead discussant that the government of the day then had a retreat and said there must be a national pledge. What is that thing that we must do to ensure that we do not go through another civil war? The government of that day came out with the decision that what will prevent another civil war is to ensure that anybody born after January 1970 has free and compulsory primary education, primary school education. Regrettably, that administration was overthrown 2 years later, and all the lofty ideas, all the preparations that were made to ensure that every child of school age acquires compulsory and free education
were jettisoned.
And we are paying the price today. Because if you have 13.3 million students, children out of school age, that is the market from which Boko Haram, bandits, IPOB, and other, militants, that is the market where they recruit their people. So one of the resolutions of our town meeting was that all levels of government must ensure that we go back to that and ensure at least free primary compulsory education for the first 9 years of school for each child. So they didn't spare us, but they didn't spare any government either. And they were made it clear that we didn't get to where we got here overnight. For instance, I remember what the lead speaker also made reference to what happened in 2007 in Kwara State, when the then Commissioner for Education decided to conduct a test for all the teachers in primary school or secondary school. And he asked them to the same exam that they set for primary 4 teachers.
For primary 4 students?
Yes, sorry, for primary 4 students, that they should go and do the exam. 90% of them failed.
I remember that incident.
You do.
Very well.
Now, so you can see that this decay has been over time. But we are courageous enough to ask people to examine us and come up and give us implementable, solutions. And the consensus of that meeting was, one, the primacy of law and order is important for any society.
Rule of law.
Rule of law. 2, it was also decided that judiciary must be decentralized and be reformed using through constitutional amendment. That security agencies, be military, be police, and others, must be expanded in number. They must be retrained. They must be given the technology to address emerging security challenges. It was also the consensus of that meeting that state police should be established and that both National Assembly and the State Assembly should help along that line. It was resolved also that the age-long roles of the traditional rulers must be restored if they want them to maintain order and security in their domains. Don't forget, it was 1976 local government reform that actually took away those roles from the traditional rulers. Another resolution of that meeting was that we should go back to the drawing board in relation to local autonomy for local government. Because if you don't give them that autonomy, a lot of ungovernable, spaces are going to grow. But more importantly, it was resolved at that meeting that the cry, the agitation for political restructuring is okay. However, what is not okay is the call for secession or for separation. Because as Professor Ajayi said in his lecture in 2002, according to the lead discussant, that we need more energy to break Nigeria than to fix it. As a matter of fact, the strength of Nigeria is its diversity. So everybody agrees that secession is not an option. And we agreed also at that meeting that the present system of animal husbandry is not sustainable.
That's the open grazing.
It's not sustainable. That ranches must be established all over. Grazing reserves must be established. They must provide them with all type of amenities like, tapping sticks, watering holes, food, pasture and the like. And we're taking back to those days when there was a harmonious relationship between farmers and herdsmen. When farmers used to even invite herdsmen to bring their cattle so that they can provide manure for their farms. And at the end of harvest season, at the end of harvest, also invite, herdsmen to come and help them so that their cattle would clear all the rubbish. But many things transpired between them and now. One is climate change. 50 years ago, the Lake Chad that sustained lives of about 20 million people from Nigeria, from Niger, from Cameroon, from Chad, South African Republic, and Benin, has lost 90% of the volume. So those people now are moving south. So, of course, that's why you have now more conflict. Then, what was the population of Nigeria in 1950? 33 million. Today, we are 200 million. So, part of our problem, apart from criminality that has entered this, is a kind of a struggle, scramble for dwindling resources, scramble for water, scramble for pasture, scramble for land. Urbanization has not helped matters either. Grazing routes, grazing reserves have been taken over. We built airports all over them. We built roads all over them. So, we must look at these things dispassionately. Those who are criminal herdsmen, we must separate them from those who are not criminal. And you see, like I told you again about a month ago, the federal government has embarked on the livestock transformation policy, which is heading towards establishing ranches, establishing grazing reserves. But this cannot be overnight. There are some cultural issues attached to some of these, problems. I explained to you the other time that for the average herdsman, it's about quantity and not quality. That while it has been proven that a cow that is sedentary in one place produces 10 times the amount of milk that the
roaming
produces. But you need to convince, you need to persuade, and that's why we are spending a lot of energy in advocacy. That, listen, it's cheaper, it's more sustainable, even for you to have ranches. And the federal government is determined to see to the success of the livestock transformation program.
Now, a lot of the things you've mentioned, for example, going back to the issue of education and making compulsory, getting all this 13 plus million out of school children off the streets and not providing a market for bandits and other such elements to be able to pull from. The issue of even restructuring things and equipping and decentralizing the forces, the security forces and so on, is going to involve the states a lot of the time. A lot of the states are going to be involved in this. Even the National Livestock Transformation Plan is going to involve the states because the federal government, as I'm made to understand, has no land of its own.
No.
So if it does not get the cooperation of the states, there's nowhere to put these ranches, so to speak. But one will wonder if the states have either the willingness or the capacity to do this. Willingness from the viewpoint of some of the politics that we have seen play out. When the transformation program was first mooted earlier, many states said they were not going to give anybody any land,
Exactly.
and that they had no land to give. When the issue of out-of-school children was, they said they didn't have the resources. Many of them say we can't even pay salaries. Some are about preparing to retrench civil servants now to say that, look, the way it is economically, this is not sustainable. So I'm wondering if that has been factored in to the calculation that you've just unveiled and about engaging the states. For the issue of autonomy you mentioned, for the judiciary.
For local government.
For local government. The states are the ones, at the risk of sounding as if I'm an advocate of local governments, but the states appear to be the ones standing in the way in many places of autonomy for local governments, because it provides the governors some leeway over that level of government. So I'm wondering, do you get feelers from the states that they are going to key into these things? Because if they don't key in, then you're back to square one again.
Well, I think it's in the enlightened self-interest of state governments to key into this. Because at the end of the day, there's no federal citizen. There's no federal subject. We all belong to one local government, one state. And massively enough, some of the state governments are already participating in the livestock transformation policy. Of course, they have not made, there's not so much noise being made now, because they've seen that, look, we would need to live together peacefully. We need a sound economy. At the risk of sounding like an advocate for herdsmen, the truth of the matter is that there's an economy around animal husbandry which we often overlook. Take, for instance, is there any village in Nigeria you don't have at least one abattoir, or where they butcher cows? Is there any one village in Nigeria? Don't they employ people? Now look at our transportation system. Even if we are going to use rail, the farm product, whether it be crops, whether it be animal, it's a major factor in road transport, in transportation. So we must look at things from that big picture and say how we have agreed that the present system is not sustainable. We must transit. We must employ modern technology. And like one of the discussants said, he said 2 animal husbandry species has successfully transformed and adopted technology: poultry and piggery. Because there's no culture, attached to those ones. And I think rather than talk at one another, we should talk more to ourselves. Because I learned a lot, even from that town hall meeting, about the animal husbandry, about the intricacies of it, about the economy. Because what about tannery? What about the leather works? So we need to develop our animal husbandry. Incidentally, we are just reminded again that why you see the constant conflict now, especially in the southern part of Nigeria, is because of even the progress that man has made in terms of technology and medicine. Before, when tsetse fly was abundant in the south, there were no cows then. Then we also reminded that these ranches we're talking about, these grazing reserves, were all over Nigeria before. So,
yes.
You see, but rather than be emotional about these issues, let's be rational about them. Let's look at it in a much rational way. I know it is fashionable for some people to look like ethnic champions, but at the end of the day, we don't help anybody. It don't help anybody. So I believe that we'll continue to talk, and I intend also to seek permission to address the National Economic Council on the outcome of this town hall meeting, because we promised Nigerians that not only are we going to unpass resolutions to the National Executive Council, we're also going to engage stakeholders and state governments, because part of the resolution that was made was that the northern state governments in particular should be encouraged to include in their next year budget provisions for ranches, for grazing reserves, and for integrated animal husbandry, industry.
These are things that are, as you said, not going to happen overnight. These are plans that will take maybe even beyond the lifespan of this administration.
Yeah, but then you see, we believe that we can kickstart it. And like rightly said, most of it will be done by the state governments. So once we get their buy-in, and believe me, it is in their enlightened self-interest that they buy in. Because banditry, Boko Haram, insurgency, is happening in particular states. So those governors would benefit more by keying into our resolutions and having peace and development.
Well, they seem not to be thinking that far ahead.
Not all of them.
With a few notable exceptions.
Honestly, not all of them. I had a meeting with governors from the southeast, governors from the south, with former governors from the southeast and the south, with defense chiefs, and you'll be amazed at the consensus of everybody. Everybody agrees that the non-state actors are the enemies of the state. I was amazed and impressed by the level of objectivity and patriotic nationality of nationalism of these governors, because they've seen it.
Well, Honorable Minister, some of those listening to you will say that part of the reason why they seem to have come around to this now is that even their own authority too is being threatened by some of those non-state actors.
Ladi, but the important thing is that they are coming around. That's the important thing. They're coming around. And you see, when you listen to some of them too, you begin to appreciate their own challenges too. And that is why it is important for there to be this consensus from the federal, from the state, local government, between the military, the police, and the states.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much, Daddy. I think it's been quite exciting, for all the parties. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's today's episode of NewsNight. Thanks for watching. Would like to know what you think of the issues raised during this conversation. Our social media handles are right there on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast. I'm Ladi Akeredoluale. Goodbye.